that. Please do that. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is our first networking meeting. It's International Women's Day. It's Women in Caribbean Aquaculture. And I'm so excited to have you all join us. I wanted to introduce to you Maya, who is our chair. We have grown so much and it's just not possible anymore. And we want to be effective. We want to be an effective group. And so we do need extra volunteers and extra help. And Maya so wonderfully stepped forward to be our first chair for women in Caribbean aquaculture. And I just want to thank Maya for putting this all together. It's amazing. And it's been so great to have this help to do this. And I look forward to what Maya has to put together for the rest of the next couple of months that she has said to be interim. So, and hopefully you'll stay on and not just be interim. I hope you'll enjoy it that much. So I just wanted to say thank you to Catherine for being our sponsor last year that helped us to get it going. I was trying to find our video, but Maya's going to show it, but I was trying to find that wonderful video that we played last year that Biomar put together. Catherine, I want to thank you so much for being, just behind us, behind me, seeing the view of what you could see that, what we've done so much so far. I'm trying to get to the full. That's the thing about being the host. I don't want to be I have to like find
Do
the
a
whole
few
grade.
things. Well, I'll jump in and
Yeah.
say, well, exceeding expectations, ladies. It's wonderful to see this group of over 20 people coming together. We, of course, were honored to, and me personally, as a woman in aquaculture and one of with three brothers. I mean, I need more women supporters around. So I was quite happy and honored to help you launch, but you have exceeded all expectations in what you've been able to do from the very beginning, and really, we opened some doors. We gave a little money. I mean, we didn't break at the bank here or anything like that. So, but in the same light, we were very happy to send Juli-Anne to conference, and in Maya also. And we're quite welcome to receive again, Juli-Anne, through your coordination, anyone who also needs a little helping hand to get to a conference or get somewhere around the world. We are still here, and I still have funds saved aside for that. So please, through Juli-Anne, reach out, and we're quite happy to support. I think what you guys are doing is amazing, and I mean, your region needs this desperately. The world needs it desperately. So whatever we can do to help support, we're behind you. Congratulations on excellent work in this past year.
No, thank you. It only took like one person to believe, and this is what was created. So as I move forward, I'm trying to do the same thing for anybody else who needs a little help, because it just takes one person to really believe in something that just seemed impossible. And I'm really excited about where we're going. So thank you. And Maya, thank you for doing this. And I have Maya's bio up in our newsletter. So anyone who wants to read about Maya, who is from St. Lucia and currently in Eleuthera, the Bahamas, please read about the work that Maya is doing. So Maya, take it from here.
All right. Well, like Julie said, good afternoon and welcome everyone to this event where we're trying to celebrate some of the women in aquaculture in the Caribbean and beyond. Well, Julie did a great job of introducing me, so I won't bore you with details about myself, but if you look at my background, you could see the beautiful Eleuthera where I am currently working. Here I work mostly in aquaponics, but I also do some research in freshwater aquaculture and had the honor of getting Julie to help me out with some of my work last year. So firstly, just wondering, is there anybody who's a part of this meeting today who has never been to one of our events before, who doesn't know what the Caribbean Aquaculture Education and Innovation, a long name, what this hub is, who the women in Caribbean aquaculture are? Is there anybody here today who has never heard of us? I would like to hope not, but in any event, I will just take some time to tell you very quickly who we are, what we're trying to do. So the idea behind this whole hub was obviously Julie's, and the intention is to bring together all the stakeholders that we could find in the region. So we're looking at people who are involved in the science, the technology, the business, the policy, and try to bring all these minds together to ultimately try to revolutionize aquaculture throughout the region and help it to grow sustainably. And I think one of the key elements that we've recognized is trying to target the education sector, so to speak. So trying to see if we could get aquaculture into our schools, and we're talking different levels, primary, secondary, tertiary. So the idea of this hub, yeah, let me just quickly change this slide and tell you a little bit about the hub. So yeah, if you go to our website, this is briefly what you will see. And the hub is basically made up of two subgroups. So we have the women in Caribbean aquaculture, who would be the ones organizing this event today. But we also have the Caribbean Aquaculture Network, which I think came before all of it. So the Aquaculture Network started in 2021 and just aimed at targeting farmers, entrepreneurs, government officials, everybody, and just trying to bring us together so that we could help grow the network. And what I found particularly fascinating about this network is not so much what I've learned, which has been great, but the range of people that I have met in the last year and a half, just by being a part of this network. It is incredible, really, the number of people that I've met and the kind of work that people are doing. And as much as nothing has felt particularly formal in terms of introductions, it's just, these wouldn't have happened if we were not a part of this network. And so I'm truly grateful that it exists and that we're here now. So the women in Caribbean aquaculture, I guess what I'm currently being the chair of, this group was founded in the summer of 2022 by a group of passionate women, mostly scientists involved in various types of research. So we have some people who focus on nutrition, animal health, mariculture, freshwater aquaculture, some entrepreneurs. And our mission is a bit twofold. So primarily, we're trying to help support and empower women that are interested and involved in aquaculture in some way or another. But also, we're trying to see how we could, first of all, understand the barriers that exist and then break down those barriers to encourage more women to be involved in aquaculture. So generally, this whole aquaculture education and innovation hub is just a way to let the world know that we're here. And when I say we're here, I mean the Caribbean, and I mean aquaculturists in the Caribbean. So just want to let everybody know that we're here. So just very quickly, I want to walk you through what WiCA has looked like for the last year. So it started off, like you would have heard a little bit about from Julie as well as Catherine, with Julie not only being able to attract the attention, but then the sponsorship from Biomar, which I guess for those who don't know is this very huge feed company based in Europe, but operating in several countries over Europe, South America, Asia, Australia. And this sponsorship was able to, first of all, help us get a marketing team that was able to build our website. We got a newsletter. We have a lot of social media presence. I was hoping to try to show off my shirt, but then I forgot this was a virtual event and you can't really see much. But we've gotten some merchandise out of it, and it's really great, and we want more of that to happen. You'll hear a little bit more about the marketing team later from Julie, but that's one thing that we were able to accomplish with this sponsorship, and that has helped obviously promote and grow the network. Like was also mentioned previously, Dr. Russo was able to attend the Latin American Caribbean Aquaculture Conference. It was hosted in Panama last year, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later on in today's proceedings. Through the online platforms that we created, we're able to have a lot of networking events. So we hosted a number of seminars, a lot of them geared towards students, some of them were geared towards educators, and some were just for general aquaculture enthusiasts who wanted to learn more about different subject areas that we've been studying and practicing here in the Caribbean. So something else that the network was able to do was highlight some of the work that is being done by a lot of the members. And some people have been featured in this aquaculture publication known as the Fish Site, and you could look it up. You could see quite a number of stories by several of us in the audience there today, and some who are not. Most notably to me, as an accomplishment of WiCA, was last year when Dr. Russo was appointed this Fulbright Specialist Award, and that allowed her to come here to the Bahamas to help me work on some of my research, which is geared towards fish nutrition. And coincidentally or not, her visit happened to be at the same time that the Caribbean Week of Agriculture was happening. And she was invited to chair one of the sessions, and I got to kind of experience firsthand how Julie works. So she was out there and she was able to point out to the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, CRFM, you must have heard about them, show them the role that aquaculture plays in the blue economy in general. And because of her influence, members of our network have now been invited to be a part of their working group this year, which will help contribute towards making decisions that would affect the entire region. I think that is quite commendable. So to date, we have had interactions with, I think, upward of 2,000 persons, and we're hoping that we could continue to grow our network even more. But yeah, so that was just a quick chat about what the hub is, what WiCA is, what we do, what we've been trying to do, what we're hoping to continue to do. And I think we've taken up enough time with all this background stuff. So I'd like to jump into some of our presentations for today. But before we do that, I have a question for the audience. Can anybody tell me what this is in the chat? And if you know what it is and have any idea about its fishery, could you let me know what would be the minimum, or what's the harvest size rather? What are we looking for if we're trying to harvest this thing? Do we have any answers, Julie?
No, we don't have any answers.
Nobody? The first person who could answer this question, tell us what this is.
Yes,
harvest size it is.
Edna says queen conch.
The queen
Hazel
conch,
queen
that is
conch.
correct. And anybody know anything about harvesting the queen conch?
Yes, we have one answer from Ruth, 2 pounds.
2 pounds. How do you determine that? If I was a fisherman on a boat collecting conch, I don't know that I'd have a scale. What would I be looking for? I think the first correct answer will get featured in our next newsletter. Come on, people.
Lip, Edna says
size?
lip. And size, Ruth says lip, and Megan has the answer.
No, Megan can't answer.
Megan.
But I think Edna has earned herself a feature in our next newsletter. But yeah.
Alrighty.
If any of this information was new to any of you, then you may want to pay some close attention to our next presenter. So anybody in this audience who would have studied marine science at any point, especially in the Caribbean, you should have heard of Dr. Davis. And I personally never thought I'd have the honor of introducing her at any event, much less one that I was trying to put together. But yeah, I think this is the power of WiCA in full effect. So for those of you who don't know who she is, let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Davis. So for nearly 50 years, Dr. Davis, who is a research professor and the director for the Florida Atlantic University Harbor branch of the Queen Conch Lab, has been studying the conch life cycle and innovating ways to save the species for 50 years. It's a lot of research. She has become the world's foremost expert in queen conch aquaculture and has designed, implemented, and operated community-based queen conch hatcheries throughout the region. Her philosophy is to work in the communities with fisherfolk and citizens to empower them to grow their own conch for restoration, conservation, and sustainable seafood. Her work addresses vital blue economy growth by providing jobs for local staff and diversified incomes for fisherfolk. In addition, she proposes that restoration of this key herbivore into seagrass habitats will assist with carbon sequestration, thus aiding important international climate change mitigation efforts. Dr. Davis and her team are currently involved in projects in Florida, the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, Curacao, Jamaica, and several other Caribbean nations. Moreover, more than ever, communities are seeking her knowledge to bring solutions to the escalating species decline. And I think I will be working with her soon, hopefully, crossing all fingers. Anyway, please join me in welcoming Dr. Davis.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and it's just so great to be part of this network, and congratulations to Juli-Anne and the team for putting together this Caribbean initiative, which is so important. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the slides. Share my screen here. There we go. All right. Once again, thank you all for joining and coming to learn a little bit about what we're doing with the queen conch in the communities of the Caribbean. And so, as many of you know, the conch is the most significant molluscan species in the Caribbean. It's only second to lobsters in terms of the most important fisheries species in the Caribbean. It's truly a way of life for many, many communities and many countries in the Caribbean. It has been a way of life for the Caribbean for many decades. It's really in the 1970s when there was much more concentrated effort on fishing of conch because of the fact that it could be easily transported by the sea in containerized cool containers, like refrigerated. And so that really started the boom of the collection of the queen conch. And so since that time, that's really been almost over 40 years now. Since that time, it has gone through lots of fisheries regulations and management through CAEIH, which I'll mention in a minute. But the most significant thing that's happened just about a month ago was that NOAA Fisheries listed the queen conch as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, which now means that there needs to be a mission towards how to make sure that there's recovery of the species so that it doesn't go into the endangered category of the ESA. So as I mentioned, there is a lot of fisheries management throughout the Caribbean. Every country has its own fisheries management of the species, but many of the countries are part of what we call CITES, which is the Convention of International Trade of Endangered Species, and that's Appendix 2, which means that it can be fished, but it needs to be fished with a very significant fisheries management plan. So we have begun an initiative with a vision to have a queen conch farm in every Caribbean country. And in this map, you can see the areas that we are currently working in. We're located as our headquarters in Fort Pierce, Florida, with Florida Atlantic University, Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute. And we're working throughout the Bahamas. We have a new project starting in the Turks and Caicos. We are established in Puerto Rico, a new project in Jamaica, projects in Curacao, Bonaire. And then we're also beginning to work in the Eastern Caribbean, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so our mission is to grow the queen conch for the sake of the species, also the ecosystem, the seagrass ecosystem, and for the people who depend on the fishery. So we try to take a holistic approach to the mission. We know how important it is for the islands. We know how important it is ecologically to the ocean. And so we blend these different categories, I suppose you could call it, together when we're thinking about how to formulate a project. And so you can see the species and the ecosystem side. You can also see the importance of the people and the community side. And then there's the fishery and the aquaculture side. And then there's also the funding needs to put these projects together. The first community-based queen conch hatchery and nursery started in Naguabo, Puerto Rico, and it was established in 2019. It's funded through the SK NOAA Fisheries Program, also USDA and Puerto Rico Sea Grant. What's exciting about this project that it's located within the Naguabo Fishing Association. So we work very closely with the fishermen. There's about 26 fishermen that fish out of this association. And so we work with the fishermen and also with the local members. We have staff that are there that have graduated from the University of Puerto Rico. We have fishermen's wives, we have fisher women. And so we work with a variety of different groups within our project in Naguabo. And I know Edna's on Zoom today, and she was our aquaculture manager. And so I got to work very closely with her during that time. What's exciting about these community-based projects, and this is in Puerto Rico, I've spoken about the fact that we work closely with the fishermen. They collect the egg masses from the field for us. They know exactly where the breeding populations are. They bring in small pieces of egg masses. They also help us within the facilities. It is a generational community that comes together. You can see in the lower left-hand corner, that's Carlos and his father there. Carlos is the president of the association. You can also see in the middle there is Julio, who's the fisherman and treasurer of the association. And then his sons are in the upper left-hand corner. And then in the lower corner is Marie, who's the wife, along with her children, who also come and work with us. And then Tonito and Shirley are fishermen. Well, Tonito is the father of Shirley, and Shirley is also a fisherwoman that works with us. So it's just a really amazing opportunity to work with the fishermen in the community and all the generations. So then let me switch gears. So now I'm moving into the first queen conch mobile lab. So in Puerto Rico, that was a stationary lab, but this mobile lab is the first one that was put together and designed with my colleague, Catherine Booker, who's with the Bahamas National Trust. It's in Great Exuma. And what's great about the mobile labs is that they can be built and then transported down to the islands. And so they're very versatile in terms of where they can be located. This one's located in Roll Town in Exuma, which is a small town that is on the edge of the Mariah Harbor Key National Park. And so the goal for this hatchery is to raise the conch to put back into the marine park or into the national park. And so now, because of that mobile lab, we're now have built seven more mobile labs. And so 2 are getting ready to go down to Puerto Rico. They will be positioned in 2 of the other fishing associations. They'll be nursery grow out areas. One will be in Cantano near San Juan, and one will be near Mayaguez. And then the Grand Bahama mobile labs have already been transported. They're now in Grand Bahama, and this is a partnership with Blue Action Lab. We have another one going down to Great Exuma, which will be a nursery. We have one in Jamaica, and it should be released from the port tomorrow or Friday, and then it will make its way to Discovery Bay Marine Lab. And then we have one that we'll keep at Harbor Branch so that we can use it for training. And so we're very excited about the summer with all these hatcheries throughout the Caribbean. A little bit about the life cycle of the queen conch. The breeding season is coming up now. I always say breeding season starts around Easter because of the eggs. And so the queen conch are starting to lay eggs, and they lay a benthic egg mass, which is about 500,000 eggs. They lay about 10 of those a season, the female does. And then it has a larval planktonic life cycle, which is about 21 days old. Then it finds the natural queue, which is their seagrass. It's a trophic queue that has the diatoms on the seagrass blades, and that brings them into the nursery area. And then they bury for about the first year, and then they start to come out of the substrate. It takes them about 4 years until they're mature. And so Maya started off talking about the lip thickness. And so here's a nice display that shows conch that are from about 6 months old to about 2.5 years old on the bottom row. And then the top row, the thin-lipped conch, is 3 years old. And that one's not quite sexually mature because it needs to have the filled-in lip like the one in the middle. And then they reach maturity, as I mentioned, around 4 years old. And then the old conch here on the upper right is, they estimate 20 to 40 years old. So let me just give you a little bit of the life cycle related to the hatchery. And so the female in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the beautiful egg mass that she's laid. It's sitting underneath her lip. And that it takes her about 24 to 36 hours to lay an egg mass. And then she essentially leaps away and leaves it on the bottom of the ocean for 4 days until they hatch. But you can see the developing eggs here, the newly laid. You can see very clearly the individual cells. And then when they're ready to hatch 4 days later, they look like little veligers inside of the egg capsules. So we incubate them, and they hatch at 9 o'clock at night. And then here's the beautiful veligers that have hatched day 1. They have 2 lobes. They have their little shell. The orange spots is their foot. And then by the time they get to 4 days old, they've developed 4 lobes, beginning 6 lobes. By day 6 to 10, their lobes have bifurcated, and they're definitely 6 lobes at this point, and the shell is bigger. And then by the time that they're ready for metamorphosis, around day 21, is when they have 6 very elongated lobes. They eat microalgae, so that's important to grow also in the mobile labs or in the stationary hatcheries. And then metamorphosis, there's lots of cues that we get from the animal itself. It starts to get a beginning of a proboscis. It starts to form the gill filaments so that it can go from respiration using its lobes to now using gill filaments when they go through metamorphosis. And you can see the before and after in the top there. Down at the bottom, you can see the diatoms that attract them into the seagrass beds. And those are some of the diatoms that we also feed them in the early nursery stage, along with flocculated diatoms, which we make in the lab. And one of the exciting parts about working in these different locations in the Caribbean is being able to share new skills and build skills into the community that can be used for aquaculture and other types of marine science. And so everything from plumbing to water quality to pumping water to microscope work, all the different aspects of aquaculture. And as much as I love to be on the ground, training, that's not always possible to be in every location all the time. So we do the training in person, but we also use WhatsApp. And so we have group chats, and we can send photos back and forth and share what's going on in the lab. So that's an exciting technology that we all get an opportunity to use, and it works very well in these situations. And then I just wanted to mention that we are doing training of the next generation. We do have students, we have interns, we have children that come and visit the lab, that get to work in the lab. And so it's very exciting to be able to transfer the excitement of marine science, of aquaculture, of growing animals that are such an important part of the culture in the Caribbean. And we also get to do some exchanges of ideas between communities. This was an exchange fishers program between the Bahamas and Puerto Rico. The Bahamian fishermen came to Puerto Rico and got to learn about fishing conch in the Bahamas, in Puerto Rico. And then the Bahamian fishers also got to share the way that they work with the conch in the Bahamas. I'm excited to let you all know that we have a number of resources for queen conch, learning queen conch aquaculture. We've had the English manual available for a couple of years now, and then we also have a Spanish one. And we hope someday to have both a French and also a Dutch one available as well. We have videos, and we're about to launch an online course called eConch. We are aiming to launch that by the end of April. And so it will be free, it will be open for anybody that would like to learn about the queen conch. And this will be a great resource for training as well. This work wouldn't be possible without the amazing partnerships that we have in the Caribbean and also our funding sources. So I want to give a shout out to all those that are working on the projects in the Caribbean. And this is the Queen Conch Lab team. We have an assistant director, Becky Holt, operations manager, Robinson Bazurto. We also have a research and education coordinator, Amanda Matthews. We work very closely with the ocean engineers at Harbor Branch. They're the ones that help us to put the mobile labs together. We have advisors, and we also have research administrators. And I welcome you to visit our website, and also if you have an opportunity to follow us on LinkedIn, we like to report the work that we're doing from the various labs. And with that, I'll stop sharing, and if there's time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Or leave them
Can
in the
I
chat?
ask on video or writing down?
No, you can do that now. We have a second. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I discovered a new world coming from the aquaculture in Scotland, salmon. So I just have a basic questions. I'm interested in what is the laboratory purpose to move? Is that diseases? Do you have high mortality? Or you are testing water? You have virus infection? What is affecting this farming?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. And the purpose of the pilot scale, these small scale community-based farms are to do conservation restoration of the species, to make sure that we have species available for future brood stock, for future breeding in the field, also to help with some of the replenishment in the nursery areas. Is also a training area for the local community to learn new skills and to have diversified livelihoods for the fishermen. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Or else you can leave it in the chat. No one? Okay, if you think about it, leave it in the chat and then we can address it later. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm so excited for Jamaica. I mean, you've come a long way in this whole dream. So it's incredible to see how many countries, even as far down as St. Vincent. So that's really awesome. That's amazing. It's a true Caribbean, the whole Caribbean effect that we're trying to like bring together, all the islands together. So I wanted to thank on this, Women's Day, You know, we've been talking about our scientists a lot, and it's truly thankful to our 10 scientists that helped to start our women's group. We've talked a lot about them, and as Maya said, we have a lot of interviews, and you can look on our website. And so we wouldn't have gotten anywhere with our 10 founder women who motivated and excited us to do this. But in the last year, where we have had an incredible growth in our networking events, our last webinar was amazing. We had our very first webinar for teachers because we believe that we need to change the culture of aquaculture in the Caribbean, which is not a very good one, or it's not a very informed one. So we believe that it really has to start with the teachers. And for the first time, we had a webinar to teach teachers about mariculture, and it's important to small islands in the Caribbean. We had 300 registrations from the Caribbean, a few from Africa, but that was incredible. I didn't think that there were going to be so many people who were interested, how many teachers were interested. It was a very good feedback, and they want to have more, so we're going to have a second one. But that wasn't that didn't happen without our business team. Our business team comprises of Grace Cordova, who is, hi Grace, wave. Grace is the backbone of all of our IT. I mean, she was there for helping everything to do with IT and managing over 300 people. Hazel was our social media guru, because if it's not for social media, we live in a digital age. This is how we have to get our communication across. As scientists, I believe that we sometimes stay in the background a lot of research, you know, we're always at the lab, but it's really important that our message gets across, especially within the Caribbean. And so, of course, social media and living in the digital age is really incredibly important. And Maya is going to introduce Hazel, but our other business team member, Tracy, I don't think Tracy is here today, helps with the design and the web, and also just updating our website. And so I am very thankful for these three women who own their own businesses. Talk about women and women in business, for being on our team and helping us to get the communication across. And I look forward to us having more networking events, but that can only happen with our business team. So I want to thank you so much for all that you have done. And we're going to have another event where we talk about women in business, because I think it's really important for that aspect in our women's group to learn about what it is to have your own business and to start your own business. So Hazel, is Maya here? Oh yes, Maya, take it away introducing Hazel.
All right, sorry. So, hi, I had some minor technical difficulties living on an island. You never know when the power will just go out on you. Anyway, I am particularly excited about this next talk because I don't know if I speak for some of the other scientists in the room, but you don't really think much about the link between your work and social media, especially in this day and age where that is the platform that most people use. So I would really like to learn a bit more about how I can use social media to enhance the work that I'm doing. So allow me to introduce Hazel. Hazel Peat is a marketing manager for over 16 years with experience across a range of sectors, including oil and gas, renewables, and aquaculture. She helps businesses focus on what they do best and takes the stress out of marketing by taking a holistic view and implementing strategies that are multi-channel but connected. Hazel has been involved in the running of our hub social media account, creating content, managing campaigns, all to encourage the engagement and education on aquaculture in the Caribbean, as well as providing other marketing services. She has also been working in Scottish aquaculture for a while, over 5 years, managing events, and making activities for sustainable aquaculture innovation centers there, gaining significant experience of the sector and making important connections. So with that, we invite Hazel to talk to us a bit.
Thank you for the introduction. I will just share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see my presentation. Yeah, good. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about harnessing social media for effective aquaculture communication. So as Maya said, I've been working in aquaculture for almost 6 years now. I feel like I've learned a lot. I'm not a scientist, I'm not from a technical background, but it's such a lovely community in Scotland, and as I've found globally, people are really kind and really friendly and really want to help when you're looking for some information. So it's been really interesting so far. So just to follow on, so I currently work with Sustainable Aquaculture Innovation Centre in Scotland, and Women in Scottish Aquaculture is an initiative that we run there, which led me to meet Juli-Anne and her colleague Stacey-Anne last year, or was it 2 years ago? And not so long after that, I started my own business, and Juli-Anne got in touch with me. So yeah, talk about meant to be. And so far, having worked with Caribbean Aquaculture Education Innovation Hub and Women in Caribbean Aquaculture, it has been so interesting and really lovely to get to know people and to get to know a bit more about another sector. So how can we use social media for effective communication in aquaculture? So why use social media? Well, 4.95 billion people use social media globally, so you have a massive audience. It's made up of lots of different segments, and it's really important that you use it effectively. It's a free tool, so it makes a lot of sense to use it. You are able to build a community, people follow you for a reason, so it becomes a community where it's also two-way. A lot of the time it might feel like you're just throwing information into the abyss, but people are watching, people are paying attention, and the idea is hopefully to get people to engage as well, to ask questions, to answer questions that you ask them. It can be seen as a bit of a shop window, so it's an insight into your practices, into the science behind the business, if you like, of aquaculture, the people behind the business as well. You have access to analytics, so you are able to see what content is working well, what content is not working as well. You can increase your brand awareness and also the awareness of the sector as well. And so some demographics: young adults between 18 and 29 are most active, followed by those aged 30 to 49. However, usage among older demographics is steadily increasing. So in terms of you know, the age range of people using social media, it is pretty much across the board. So these are the generations that you're able to communicate with using social media. People with higher levels of education tend to use social media more frequently, but it is prevalent across all education levels. Again, just showing the breadth of the audience that you have access to. And then with urban areas having a higher social media usage, possibly due to better connectivity, but rural areas, this is on the increase as well. So again, it is important to understand that you are able to connect with so many different types of people. And some aquaculture audience types that you can identify. So you've got your academics, researchers, early career researchers, colleges and universities. sector professionals, producers, supply chain and trade bodies, other key stakeholders such as industry associations and societies, plus governments, people who are in education, whether that's the students themselves or their professors and teachers, the trade press, mainstream press, and of course the wider public, consumers and the general population. And all of these people, they're going to want to consume different types of information. For example, those in education, perhaps high school students, they don't want to consume the same information as perhaps sector professionals or academics, because it might be things that they don't find easy to understand. So it's just trying to get the tone right for each type of audience that you're trying to connect with. And why is it important? So it's important to raise awareness and provide education on a lesser known sector. Aquaculture is quite a young industry, and it can quite often be a little bit misunderstood. And using social media, you can help to combat myths and misinformation, and therefore have a better public perception. You can also provide explanations of terms and summarise complex information. And this is where you're likely to speak to people in a way that they can understand, and they can then understand a bit more about the sector, what we provide, and you know what they have perhaps heard somewhere else. They can get more correct information. You can help people to explore the benefits of the sector, highlight challenges and opportunities, promote careers, provide an insight on daily operations, and share good news stories. So there are often some not so good news stories surrounding aquaculture, depending on the industry. And there are lots of people who don't believe that it's a good operation. However, the people who are working in aquaculture, they know what operations they are undertaking, and the benefits, and also the operations that go into that go into mitigating the challenges that aquaculture presents as well. So being able to share that just helps people to it helps to build trust in the sector. And by doing so on social media, I think it offers a really kind of easily digestible way as well. You know, people aren't having to read like journals and things like that. It puts the really important information straight to them. And the benefits of this, like I said earlier, it's a huge reach, a huge potential reach that you have with social media, very varied audience. It allows for some interaction with your community and stakeholders. It's possible to have real-time updates, so you know you can share so much information very, very quickly, without having to rely on press releases and things like that. And it helps to establish a positive sector reputation. So as I said before, sharing things about your daily operation and kind of opening your doors to let people see what it is that you're doing can really help to get people to understand what's going on. And here are some examples from Caribbean Aquaculture Innovation and Education Hub, Education and Innovation Hub rather, some of the social media that we have shared. So one was from the webinar that Juli-Anne mentioned, and also we have some terminology, and also a quote which I think is really nice to share, because you know, people maybe can't imagine working in aquaculture. They don't necessarily understand that there are so many opportunities available, and yeah, they don't necessarily understand kind of the community feel that you have working in aquaculture. So it's really nice to share some examples. And so best practices with social media. I think it's important to tailor your content to target audiences. And that's not necessarily different content for different platforms. For example, something that's really highbrow for LinkedIn and something not so highbrow for Facebook or Instagram. What I mean is just a real variety of content that is just really easy for people to understand. So not really confusing people with lots of terminology. If you are using terminology, just simplify it, because, you know, as I said, I'm not from a scientific background, so I always have to ask what the terminology means. So I understand from that perspective that you can put people off. Utilising eye-catching visuals and scroll-stopping content for greater impact. So when you have such a lovely brand palette to work with, as I do with the Caribbean Aquaculture Hub, it's fab. You get to share amazing visuals, which is really, really good from my point of view. But I think that's the sort of thing that people will notice. And also getting the content right, getting straight to the point and telling people what it is that you have on offer, for example, a webinar or you know, some information about a specific species, or access to a newsletter with lots of interesting information about Caribbean aquaculture. Consistency in posting is important. It doesn't have to be every day, but it has to be quite regular in order for your followers to keep being interested and to keep your content always at the forefront as well. As well with engagement, when people comment or send a message, it's really important to respond so that they feel important and keep coming back. So monitoring and responding to feedback is kind of the same thing. Careful integration of emerging technologies such as AI and communication strategies. AI is really amazing. It is used quite a lot in social media, but it is important just to be quite careful about how you use it. Make sure that you find out what the source is of any data that AI brings forward for you, and also to amend the copy, because it needs to sound like your organization tone of voice as well. So it's, you know, you don't want to sound like a robot, basically, is what I'm saying. So stay adaptable and innovative, but focus on facts always. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about AI. You know, always make sure that you've got something to back up your data. So, however, social media, as great as it is, it's only one tool in the marketing kit. You need to interact with your audience in other ways, for example, through email marketing, with a newsletter, ensuring your website's correct and up to date, and networking through in-person and online events. So social media will only take you so far. It is really important. You do have to be online, you do have to be out there, but you know, there's all these other ways that work so well together. Tread carefully with trends and new technology. There are always trends in social media, and they may or may not be appropriate for aquaculture. Some of them can be a little bit tongue-in-cheek and things like that, which might be okay, but it also might just not be appropriate. And with new technology such as AI, yeah, just it is helpful. It is time saving to get some ideas sometimes, you know, like when you are managing social media, it's not the easiest thing to do all the time to come up with new ideas every single day. It can be helpful with that, but as I said, you know, you need to make sure that you are speaking in the correct tone of voice. Consistency is key. So again, just to find a consistent posting strategy. If you can manage to do it 3 times a week, amazing. If you can do it 5 times a week, great, but just whatever works. the best way for you and to keep your brands consistent and keep your tone of voice consistent so that people know that they're dealing with you and they get to know you a little bit as well. And also ignore the hacks. There are so many that people are telling you, like, you know, you're going to get 20,000 followers if you follow this hack. No, you're not. It's nonsense. Okay, so that is my presentation finished. I would be really delighted if you would like to connect with me. I am on LinkedIn and Instagram and also Facebook. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hazel. Does anybody have any questions? Anything in the chat? I mean, that has been a lot for me to think about. I guess as a secretary, mostly think about publishing in journals, but it's always helpful to know that there is the social media audience. And especially for a lot of us, I think the work that we're doing, we're hoping that it will have impacts on the ground with the farmers, with the people who are actively engaged. And what are the odds that they would be the ones reading a journal paper? So we do need to think more about broadening our platforms where we communicate the work that we're doing, and also being mindful of how we communicate that work.
Yeah, and if you have something published online, then by all means, you know, let people know that it's there. Like social media is there for signposting information too. So, you know, someone may not come across it unless you tell them that it's there. So that's a good way to use it.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Science
I
is
have
a
a
challenge,
question.
but this is the bigger challenge. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I understand the value of, first of all, sorry, great presentation, Hazel. Thank you so much for that. Afternoon to everyone. I understand the value of social media, but here's the other side of the coin. A lot of us as scientists are extremely shy. We don't mind doing the background work. We don't mind being in the field. And if you take even a few pictures of us, we're fine. But to actually come forward and say, this is actually me, and yes, this is the work that I do, we are extremely shy. How do you help with that?
So I totally understand. And yeah, I'll be honest, I've been pretty shy my whole life, but you get to a point where you just have to sing your own praises and the praises of your projects and your colleagues and that sort of thing. So you don't necessarily have to go and be in front of camera. You know, Juli-Anne will go and speak to camera quite often, and she's very comfortable doing so. You could be behind camera just talking about your work and she's not comfortable. You could be behind the camera talking about your work, you know, showing people around where you're working today. Even just some images can be really helpful just for people to understand and get a feel for what it is that you do. And one of the things we do with Women in Scottish Aquaculture is we share interviews with women all over the world, actually, doing different jobs. And the idea of that is to show the breadth and depth of all of the different jobs. You know, you'll have people that work in fish husbandry, you'll have people that work in a lab, you'll have people that work in IT, and it's not necessarily what people associate with aquaculture. And it just shows how many opportunities that are available. And it's maybe just a picture of the person, you know, profile picture, but also what them doing their work with lots of information. So you can either do it that way and publish something on social media directing people to that, or you could be, you know, you could just get bold one day and be like, you know, here I am, and show someone around, which both ways work. You know, it's just making a connection with your audience.
Great. I see we have a question from Catherine.
Well, I was just going to add to that. There are a lot of aquaculture and seafood influencers out there as well, like Seaside with Emily. That's a nice one where I think as a community, you can also invite her to come down and she can do the work for you. Not only does she have a broader reach, she to get the information out there. But it's also sometimes good to use these other people who are more comfortable in the space to do that work for you and find out how you could engage with them to spread your message. I certainly understand, and I've worked with scientists my whole life, why, that's been my job to promote scientists, because I'm sorry, they do not know how, and they are not comfortable doing it. And I wouldn't want to put it on to them to do that either. But there are other ways around that, I think. So utilizing and even, inviting these people down to see your world would help you get your message out. But be very clear about what you're trying to achieve from the messaging. What is the objective here, and who are you trying to get the message across? And then Hazel will be able to make the strategy clear on how to achieve that objective, especially as a unit.
That's good to know. I made a note of it. Seaside with Emily. I'll reach out to her.
That's just one. There's more
Great.
of them out there, so you just have to find them. Or we can give you a list.
Yeah,
That's
good
a
to know.
great idea.
Definitely get the
Yeah.
list. Mariana.
Mariana.
Hi, Hazel.
Hi.
Well, aquaculture is a whole new world for a lot of people out there that are not part of the industry. So for this type of audience, do you think it's a challenge to create content, or how do you approach that? I mean, it's interesting, but many people have like zero idea what's going on with aquaculture.
Yeah, you're right. I think, I'll be completely honest, before I got a job in aquaculture, I didn't really know what it was. So I think that it's good to try to educate people as to where their food is coming from. So if you make that connection with them, rather than all of the kind of intricate details, but this is actually where your food comes from. And I think that resonates with people a lot more. And also you've got, like I say, you've got the kind of negative image for some of it. And you can't argue with these people. The people who kind of are like, anti-aquaculture activists even, you can't argue with them. But what you can do is make sure that you are putting out the kind of positive news stories and the facts as well. So, the fact is that in some aquaculture practices there are issues and there are challenges, but here are all the amazing projects that are being carried out and all the research that's being carried out in order to mitigate that. So I think that this all just kind of helps people to build trust. So yeah, it is a challenge at times to come up with the best way forward with it. But I think just sticking to facts is the best way.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. So yeah, while we think about how we can put ourselves out there, let's move on to the next presenter. Who can tell me what we're looking at? Anybody in the chat, Julie?
Just blurt it out. Roz says sargassum.
Cousins, maybe.
Hazel and Megan say seaweed.
Ooh, okay. So
Carolyn and Mariana say seaweed farm. And
right.
Mikeba from St. Lucia,
Yes.
sea moss.
She should even recognize the people in the picture.
Leanne goes even further to say Irish moss.
Well, that's
So we have
specific.
different names for it in the Caribbean.
Well, now I will invite one of our fellow WiCA members to talk to you about what we're looking at here. So Ruth Gutierez-Corley is an aquaculturist with over a decade of interdisciplinary experience, and she's currently pursuing a PhD in islands and small-scale studies at the University of Malta. having received a scholarship from the Maltese Ministry for Foreign and European Affairs and Trade. She's specializing in seaweed farming in small island developing states, particularly in the Caribbean. And her doctoral thesis is titled The Sustainability of Seaweed Aquaculture for Blue Growth and Climate Change Adaptation in Small Island Developing States, the Case of Belize. And it aims to identify local adaptation strategies used by seaweed farmers. Prior to her PhD, Ruth earned a master's in aquaculture and environment and society through the Erasmus Mundus program and the Scottish Institute for Marine Science, studying at 3 esteemed European universities. Her academic journey started at the University of Belize, where she did a Bachelor of Science and associate degree in natural resource management. Ruth is actively engaged in her community and international networks. So unlike most of us scientists, she is not shy. In her village, which is independent of Mango Creek in Belize, she has co-founded a non-governmental organization called Building Belizean Livelihoods and Environment, or BBLU, in 2019, and also founded a youth organization named Independence Youth Action Movement, IEAM, in 2015. And she is currently the Woman of the Month in that organization. In her international networks, she's a member of the Caribbean Development Bank Future Leaders Network. She's a member of the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network. She's obviously a member of the Women in Caribbean Aquaculture and the International Seaweed Association. Her commitment extends to professional aquaculture and climate change networks, NGOs, and youth organizations. Ruth is passionate and dedicated to promoting sustainable livelihoods and enhancing food security, while empowering youth and women to diversify the fisheries and aquaculture sectors of coastal communities in the region. So please welcome Ruth to talk to us about seaweed farming.
Thank you so much for that, Maya. I really appreciate it. I must say, it's quite a great audience, to see everyone out today, this evening online. So thank you for this time. I'm not as brave as Maya said, but I used to be brave, but I'm just like curled into my research world, trying to not let no thought escape. So I've not been on social media. So a part of my research findings is something that I'm showing, not for the first time, but for the second time. So, and hopefully I'll be able to refine it in coming presentations. So thank you so much for giving me the stage to be able to bounce some ideas with you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So when we say I've had a decade of experience in this marine area, it started from my undergraduate, becoming passionate. And I started off with coral planting. So it's funny how I'm all the way at seaweed. So how did I get here? And I think most of us go through that, coming from a SIDS, we inherit some of the passions and the environment we're in. And where I live, well, I'm currently in the UK, but in Belize, I live in southern Belize, Independence Village. So we're like this little community in the middle of Placencia, Punta Gorda, Monkey River, and we're like a residential home for all those people that work at the shrimp farms, even some hatcheries, mainly shrimp, and some lobster and finfish export. So I'm quite interactive with the people that work there from a very young age, and now having been awarded this PhD research, I was able to partner with experts focused on climate change adaptation, as I've been able to witness one particular group, the seaweed farmers in southern Belize, and now this research is national. So one of the things that we're looking at is the ways of community level participation, and I'm gonna just introduce that in the background. And then when we come on to the introduction to the case studies, having looked at the seaweed farming considerations, those that are autonomous and planned, those that derive from seaweed farmers, and those policies that are overarching in the development of this industry. And also to come on commercial red seaweed species that are found.
Sorry, Ruth.
Oh,
Ruth,
yes.
are you advancing?
Oh, yes, I am.
No, we are still seeing your first screen. Can you put it on the?
Okay, yes. Oh, yeah. All right, so let me just stop sharing and share again to see what happened. If you have any questions, like, feel free to stop me. And
Yeah, we didn't see where you were advancing, so you have to, yeah, okay.
is it moving? I don't see nothing moving.
You're on your
Okay.
presentation, you're in your background.
Yes, so the background. So when we think about seaweed, it's not something that you know, we came up with, I think, alone. I think it's something that came with the being under the colonial system and seaweed being popular, you know, in the UK, because Belize is a colony of the UK. Using seaweed in porridge, I think it's something that we use this in our foods, and I think it was taught to us. So, and the locals went on with it up to like 1980s in Belize, for example, and by the mid 1990s, fishers were already getting to know about seaweed farming, about seaweed growing on ropes. And by early 2000, people from the areas where I live, in southern Belize, they started to become interested in this new upcoming field. So we're looking at macroalgae, those that we refer to as ocean-based seaweed farming, which are those activities that occur within the ocean, not hydroponics or freshwater farming, but mainly just that marine environment. And seaweed is being used for different purposes. So rather than being like food for other finfish or crustaceans, it's actually food for human. And not only food, but also the cosmetics and pharmaceutical industry that have, you know, become really interested in finding a organic source to their products. And those that deal with skincare, with hair treatment. So just seaweed provides that that ingredient either as a binder or as a protein source, or other, and even, you know, to a lesser extent, other molecules such as oils. So because of this interest that seaweed also is, there are less barriers to it. So like even bioenergy, other drivers include bioenergy sources. How could we use this large resource to produce energy? So the demand is increasing over time. And in the last, you know, I only have, this is an outdated slide, but I'm gonna update it because I need to know by how much the industry has grown to 2023. But in 2029, it grew by 500,000 tons. So it has doubled, like, since, if you look at the data from 1990 to date, not 2021, it's pretty much been on a promising increase. So seaweed resources, why do we why is it becoming, you know, more common within coastal areas to farm it? Like I said, it's a source of food. So we've been able to domesticate some wild strains and also some introduced that become native, using monolines, tubular nets, anything that you could cage the seaweed in and it could grow naturally. Even the use of, how is this done? Like the use of mangrove systems or seagrass beds or coral reef waters. In what context is these seaweed resources being harvested out of? And this also includes those that are wild collections, and what if it, you know, and how it's currently being managed. I just put in brackets unsustainable, just because collecting seaweed from the wild just means that it will become exploited like we do with everything else. So yeah, so the reason why we're doing seaweed farming or encouraging it, as you know, as a community interested in our culture, is because we don't want to see the genetic depletion of wild habitats. So we want to be able to produce the same quality, but in a more controlled environment that we could do it over and over and produce sufficient of this resource for markets, for ourselves, and so on. So at a profit, of course, because nobody will want to get into a livelihood if there is no profit. But also within this activity, the way this research is looking at seaweed is it being an activity as a way of climate adaptation. So because seaweed, it doesn't require as much input as any other aquaculture activity. So seaweed doesn't need the fertilizer. It could function on very little infrastructure, requires very little input, like in technicalities. But now looking at how the environment is moving, meaning that the environment is getting warmer, so the ocean is absorbing this kind of heat, and a lot of it is being lost. With the carbon cycle, a lot of the carbon is being increased, and it's causing. We're not sure what it's causing to the seaweed itself, but we know that communities are advancing some of the practices so that they could combat some of the effects on the seaweed crop. So even though it's an ecosystem regenerative strategy, others see it as an income livelihood option. So weighing the two to see what role is seaweed playing within at a community level is important. So how is it addressing food security, pharmaceutical uses, and also ways it works in the environment and climate adaptation, income streams. Livelihood as a climate adaptation option. So persons at the community level making an income while helping the global climate. So in this perspective, this research focuses on the adaptation strategy rather than mitigation. So all of the unknowns as to in what role is seaweed playing in the environment, like in terms of carbon storage and sink and all of that, this research is not looking at that. So it's just looking at how people are evolving within this area. And two examples within the climate adaptation theory is that the concepts of community-based adaptation and ecosystem-based adaptation, and both stemming from that community-based natural resource management that now evolve into MPAs and or forests and protected areas. So yes, so this is the concept of it, the framework. And throughout like my literature review, I've been looking at challenges and opportunities as a whole with the Caribbean, not only the Caribbean SIDS, but the global SIDS, and to see in what context seaweed is being mentioned, if it's within blue economy or ecosystem restoration, and just to see whether it's being looked as a biotrade option or both, or a catalyst within the ocean, as its purpose, a producer. Yeah. So when we think about seaweed mariculture, of course, as the literature shows, species selection is definitely something that the locals try to do amongst themselves, find out which species is growing the fastest, and where could they grow it? Is it a protected area? Is it an area that's naturally protected? And what is the scale of it? So permits always come into the question of getting the permission from authorities, environmental considerations, the knowledge to actually conduct the activity, and having the income and institutional capacity to carry out all mariculture activities, and also having a foot within the market penetration, and having that whole system in place as to how your product goes from your farm to the consumer. And hopefully this is something that will become more apparent in the future with research and innovation opportunities. Even though this is happening, it's quite at low, small advancements. But those that are working really, really hard. And for Belize, the ones that we're looking at is Ekuma and Gracilaria. And then the most recent one that's being commonly farmed is the Capophycus. So this is Belize, and the red part is actually that continental shelf that we refer to as artisanal fishing. And the blue part that goes out is the economic exclusive zone, and that's the area that some countries in the Caribbean are proposing to conduct offshore aquaculture. So Belize, what I did within the sampling is conduct 4 focus groups, 18 surveys, and 6 indeed interviews across Belize. So I was hoping to get 20 farmers, but I only managed to get 18. And then and each farmer was interviewed using guided questionnaires, so household interviews. And when we look at seaweed challenges and opportunities, economic, of course, is the potential that there's profit, that it could serve as also another income stream would be ecotourism, looking at food culture and tours and, how to become a seaweed farmer. And then with the institutional support, in Belize, we have the Nature Conservancy of Belize working with Fisheries Department, and also Beltrade, which is the commercial arm. And they're working through different programs to incentivize the industry through startup capital, like, for example, in the women's group. So all of it is yet a learning curve, as this case study only provides this baseline currently. So putting the publications out as to what is really affecting the seaweed farmers, and also the crop itself, and the environment. Environmental changes are influencing macroalgal growth, that may or may not contribute to benthic habitat health and its biodiversity. So these are opportunities to continue researching and how to maintain infrastructure that is durable for the environment, and also for the farmers themselves to protect themselves against any kind of pollution that may be in the ocean or even from the sun rays. So that came out from the research activities in the data collection last summer. Yeah. So just preliminary, now just closing, the poor documentation of traditional knowledge has been alarming to the farmers themselves, because there's a lot of dynamic within the changes of association, names, and even leadership changes, that a lot of the knowledge passed on is being lost, and inconsistency in data gathering. So there's not repeated sessions that data is being gathered at a specific time, or for publication or printed within the organizations, let's say, or within the community groups where the organizations are based. Yeah, and then seaweed farmers also express the need to establish regional and international connections. They want to be a part of WiCA, but how could they make time for these events? It's something that actually affects their bread. So how could we ensure that everyone has that equal access to knowledge and technology for that sustainable development of good practices, and also climate adaptation options, like not knowing what's good, what's not good, or having that culture of documenting is something that they definitely called for aid. Apart from the investment, a lot of it, people wanted money to be injected into the supply chain, like from their farms to their improving their farming conditions, that means security, and then having quality control for export. Everyone wants to be able, farmers want to be able to supply the market directly and not have a middleman. So how do they do that? Is establishing. They want more local training and incentive programs established for quality control, making sure they're producing one type of quality for export market, and recognition of the farmers' hard work in the development of within the industry. So this is just the beginning, but thank you so much. It's still unfolding. Sorry if I took a little bit over the time.
That's all right. I think we all enjoyed listening to you, learning about how seaweed farming works in Belize. I think a few of us in this chat are a bit familiar with it as well. Do we have any questions for Ruth?
Thank you, Dr. Julie. Yeah, I sorry I missed my meeting with Dr. Julie the other day. But I hope that I could be able to share with her some of my learnings.
That's
In
great.
that's an Antilles. I know we have a lot of issue with pretty on our seaweed farms. Is that much of a problem for you guys?
Seaweed loss, so like it's coming up a lot in the surveys. So like seaweed farmers, I tell them, oh, is the loss, how is the loss occurring? You know, if it's climatic or non-climatic reasons, like so differentiating the two and to seeing which variable from the sustainable livelihoods framework is affecting them, finance, human, natural.
Yep, Bob, you got it. So some people are asking in the chat, when do you expect to be done with your research?
So I'm supposed to submit the first draft in June, but before then, about my final draft is September. But before then, I need to submit to the seaweed farmers next month, along with the niche, the Natural History Museum. Well, not Natural History, but the National Culture Heritage Authority in Belize niche.
Wow, sounds like no sleep for you.
Yes,
I
no
think
sleep.
Lisa has a question.
Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Presentation. I was just curious. So the areas that are used for seaweed farming, is it that the authorities identify potential areas, or is it that people will go along and say, yeah, I think this is a good area, and then they apply for permits? Yeah, that's
a good question. The way Belize is definitely working its way to setting that regional standards with how they do site selection with the aid of TNC Belize. They've done a site selection. The seaweed farmers in the focus group, this came up a lot. The way they site select and how they know what's a good area, what's not. So they have certain parameters, like for example, coral location, if there's an active current flowing through, if the seaweed that could be found locally that they're growing. So some of them are specializing in different species. So different species are showing that they grow in different areas better. So a lot of the farms are being relocated actually right now. So rather than farming like near the islands, they're coming near shore. So, but they're making these decisions based on, well, so far preliminary financial, because it's more expensive. So finance is influencing site selection. I know that right now the Fisheries Department, TNC, they're working on a marine spatial plan. So this came up within the focus group, like, oh, seaweed farm is being placed offshore. How do they expect us to reach out there? This industry is not for us, it's for others. So this came up as a big concern, like where do we place seaweed? And I think it needs to be a bigger discussion, you know, at a national level. But the focus group was a start. So I think it kind of helped the seaweed farmers to prepare towards their discussion with Fisheries Department and TNC so that they could be active. So a part of it was to shake them up and become active. But it's still unfolding. We don't know. That's in the truth, Lisa. Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much.
Somebody else asked in the chat about measures that can be used to protect seaweed. I don't know if you have any.
That's a big question. This came up in my thesis defense. In the first one, the Viva, is like, what are the indicators that I'm using for my project? Because it's a socio-economic and social legal, and it's an assessment of what is operating within, you know, this crop that's in the wild, that's being predated by us. You know, like those that are opportunists, so like tour guides, fishermen, people like us tourists going out and we just see seaweed, we'll pick it up. So how do we like really control who uses this resource? And that's why I use the Crystal Toolkit. So the Crystal Toolkit is community-based risk screening climate adaptation. So to focus on how they're selecting their seeds, like if they need seeds, how do they get that? And that requires a permit to go into whatever zone, since the most countries have been zoned up, like this is an MPA, this is the general use, restricted zone. And so within general use areas, they're permitted to extract with permit, but then there's some hotspots that are not being documented. The seaweed farmers say, oh, up the like House Reef, there's like an area that's highly pirated, and it's like the government officials are involved, and it's like, you know, people are coming to take white sand, and they're also taking seaweed, you know. So these are little discussions that I think should be a national concern with these hotspots. But how do they get community involved? So to voice it, you know, because if we don't empower the community to say that we need this area to be protected because it's a genetic hotspot for seaweed, wild seaweed, then we'd never know. So even though the country is undertaking a lot of the consultations with MPA and all of this, it requires, like, I think years of research to revisit it and update it every time, so that these areas could actually be protected. So I don't know, I hope I answered that it's still on its way as to how to identify the hotspots, but currently I say community engagement.
All right, thank you so much for addressing some of our questions. There are a couple more in the chat. You could probably check them out, but we need to move on in the interest of time. But yeah, thank you so much for
No worries, thank you.
the time to do this with us. A lot of people find this very interesting. I think you'll be getting some private messages. So yeah, just let me segue here a little bit and welcome another one of our WiCA members. I'd like to invite Risha to speak to us a little bit. So Risha is a dual citizen of Trinidad and St. Vincent, and she has her undergrad degree in marine biology. Her involvement in the environmental field in Trinidad spans over 3 decades, and she spent over 5 years working on conservation legislation and public awareness campaigns with the FAO and other organizations. She was also the recipient of the Erasmus Mundus program. So we have some really incredible people that are a part of our network. And Risha will speak to us a little bit about the road to Colombia. Risha.
Thanks, Mia. So good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And I have been given the great privilege of being the travel coordinator for the Latin America and Caribbean Aquaculture Conference for WiCA members. We are trying to urge more Caribbean persons to attend, as last year we understand it was the first time someone from the Caribbean attended, and that person is Dr. Juli-Anne Russo. Hence, we want to inform all the persons at that conference of the great work and research that we're doing in the Caribbean. It's also a great opportunity for us to network and collaborate with like-minded individuals. Now, on March 4th, I sent an email to persons whose email I have, requesting information for our database for persons who will submit their abstracts. About 4 persons indicated that they will submit an abstract, but I'm still awaiting the information I requested, such as the name, the country, the travel costs. So the deadline for that internal deadline for us is next week, the 28th of March. The deadline for the conference to submit abstracts is the 31st of March. And we're certainly urging persons to email me, and I will put my email in the chat. We need to get funding. So it's very, very important for persons to submit that information so that Juli-Anne could find those who can fund the presenters to be there, okay? So certainly, as Julie is writing in the chat, if you intend on submitting an abstract, please inform me, okay? And just to remind persons that you can submit your abstract directly on the link. So Mia has some information. So general information, that link there with regards to background information on the conference, And then the link underneath is the link for you to submit your abstract. You need to submit that yourselves. We cannot do that for you, okay? And of course, you also need to find out, you know, your passport is valid if you need any particular visas to and from Colombia, okay? I was told just a nice note, because I said, let me find out, you know, what type of people are the Colombians, all right? I was told they're very effervescent, they love to party, they're creative and hardworking. So that sounds like some of the Caribbean islands. So we would, nations, we would fit in quite nicely, okay? So please, we are really aiming to let them recognize that the Caribbean region is a force to be reckoned with. We are here and, you know, we are doing good work. All right. And I think, Mia, you could put up the slide with the newsletter. We're also encouraging y'all to subscribe to our newsletter so that you can keep up to date with what's going on with WiCA and the hub. Okay. So that is it from me. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions?
Thank you, Risha. Do we have any questions about this upcoming conference or how we could participate? I think Risha was very clear, but do we have any questions? Going once, going twice. All right. So just to move on and start to wrap things up a little bit, just want to put it on your radar that we have some upcoming events that you should look out for. The first of which will be a students networking event. The proposed date for that is April 18th. So look out for a flyer coming to a screen near you. Also on the horizon, we have some other events, like we want to have a virtual session like this one, focusing on ornamental fish farming. We also want to talk a little bit more about seaweed farming, because you can see what a hot topic that one was. We also want to focus a little bit on aquaponics, and that's just what we've proposed for now. Moving forward, we'll have some more dates. The idea is to try to have at least one networking event like this a month. So we'll see how we do with that. But like Risha said, our website is right here. Please visit our website, and there you could find a link to subscribe to our newsletter where we will keep you informed of this and other events. Julie, I don't know if you want to say anything in closing.
Yes, I'm busy tapping away. So we want to make our newsletter. Our newsletters also serves as our mailing link, and we're trying to make 1,000. We have about 700 members. We also want, I didn't get a chance to do a poll here, but we want to hear from you. What is it that you want from a women's group? So we are trying to dedicate this to women because we have so many more women in aquaculture. And as Leanne said, we're very shy. And so I want to be able to have some programs to help our young women and our women aquaculturists how to make their voices be heard, because we are the backbone of the aquaculture industry in the Caribbean, I believe. And so we want to have more programs. Is it that you would like something on professional development, or would you like to have, you know, other technical? Well, for our Caribbean Aquaculture Network, we are going to be doing more technical workshops, as Maya said, but we also have our WiCA group. So we want to be able to have things dedicated to women, not only scientists, but to all aquaculturists within the industry. So I should have sent a poll. I didn't have the time, but I would love your feedback to find out what is it that you would want from a women's group, because we want to be able to do more for women in the industry and in the Caribbean. So please send an email, either DM me on LinkedIn or any of our social media. Please subscribe to our newsletter, because that's where you're going to get all the information about our future events, and follow us. That's how you can support us, by following us on our Instagram, and I even have Twitter and LinkedIn. So follow us, and I thank you so much for coming. And I want to thank again, Catherine and Megan for coming on board, for wonderful guest speakers, and also Teresa. Teresa is Teresa still there? She is
Yes, I'm
the
here. I
chair.
just have to move.
That's okay. She's a chair of women in Scottish aquaculture, and this is where the idea of WiCA was born, Women in Caribbean Aquaculture. So just having met the lovely women from Scotland when I went to Scotland last year and went back again this year, I have this wonderful affinity for Scotland, and because their industry is so it's bigger than the Caribbean, but they're doing a lot of programs there that we are going to model, and I'm happy to have Teresa and Hazel and women from Scottish Aquaculture to guide us also about, you know, how we can make our programs better. So thank you so much. I don't know if we have anything else, but we could always go on forever, but I know we ran out of time. So